At midnight on March 2nd, 2026, a mountain range that hadn't made international news in 30 years became the most watched border on Earth. The Zagros Mountains, vertical spine of western Iran, 12,000 feet at its peaks. In winter, the kind of cold that makes your rifle bolt stick and your lungs feel like wet cardboard. Into that, thousands of fighters moving in the dark. They didn't knock. Their name is PJAK, the Kurdistan Free Life Party. And on the third day of Operation Epic Fury, while US and Israeli aircraft were already dismantling Iran's air defenses from above, PJAK opened a second front. Not from the sky, from the ground. From mountains, they have operated in their entire lives against a regime that has been trying to kill them since 1979. You want to understand what that means? Here is what it looks like from the Iranian side. You are already on fire from the air. Your radar network is being systematically erased. Your commanders are getting hit. And now, the western border is moving. That is not a military problem. That is an existential one. To understand what crossed that border, you have to go back 6 days before the first American aircraft entered Iranian airspace. February 22nd, 2026. 5 of Iran's major Kurdish political parties, organizations that have spent decades in exile, in the mountains, and in Iranian prisons, announced the formation of the Coalition of Political Forces of Iranian Kurdistan. One stated goal: topple the Iranian regime and achieve Kurdish self-determination in the territory Kurds call Eastern Kurdistan. These groups had been operating separately, often at each other's throats, for 30 years. The decision to unify, in the exact week a US-Israeli military campaign was being finalized, was not a coincidence. Someone was reading the same calendar. Think of it like a startup announcing its funding round the same morning a competitor files for bankruptcy. The timing is the message. PJAK is the military wing of that coalition, and it is the only wing with real teeth. It operates 2 armed formations, the YRK, Protection Units of Eastern Kurdistan, and the HPJ, the Women's Protection Forces. These are not weekend militias. They are a hardened guerrilla force with mountain warfare experience built over decades of fighting against one of the region's most capable internal security services, the IRGC. The Zagros Mountains are their terrain. They know every pass, every valley, every ridge the way a plumber knows every pipe in a house he's been maintaining for 20 years. Iranian army commanders operating in that area are, tactically speaking, guests. On March 2nd, those fighters moved. According to a coalition official quoted by I-24 News, thousands of PJAK fighters had begun a military offensive into Iranian territory, with ground movements underway since midnight. By March 3rd, Iranian forces had evacuated the border city of Mariwan, a city of roughly 115,000 people in Iran's Kurdistan province, and were establishing defensive positions in and around the area. Let that settle. A city of 115,000 people, evacuated. Not because of airstrikes, because of men on foot in the mountains. The most consequential unanswered question in this conflict is the simplest one. Did Washington light this match? Secretary of State Rubio told Congress directly that the United States was not arming the Kurdish forces, but he added, and this is the part that matters, quote, "You never know with the Israelis." That is not a denial. That is a very precisely worded non-denial from a cabinet-level official who chose every syllable on purpose. What is confirmed? The CIA was actively working to assess how Kurdish forces could be supported to spark an uprising inside Iran. President Trump personally called Mustafa Hijri, the leader of the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan, one of the 5 parties now inside that coalition. Kurdish fighters on the ground told reporters they were waiting for what they called the American green light. 2 words: enormous history. Kurdish forces don't use the phrase green light lightly. It comes loaded with memory the way a gun comes loaded with bullets. In 1991, the United States encouraged an uprising in southern Iraq after the Gulf War, then didn't back it. Tens of thousands died. In 1975, American support for Iraqi Kurds was withdrawn overnight, literally in the middle of a conflict, when a diplomatic deal was struck with Iran. Kissinger's reported comment at the time, "Covert action should not be confused with missionary work." France 24 ran a headline on March 5th that asked it directly, "US reaches out to Iran's Kurds, but will they be hung out to dry this time?" The Kurdish leadership knows this history. They are moving anyway. The calculation, as near as anyone can reconstruct it, is this. The current window. Iran's air defenses degraded, its command and control disrupted, its senior leadership hit at the highest levels, is the best opportunity that has existed in their lifetimes. The clock is running. They are not waiting for written guarantees that history suggests will never come. Here is the chess piece no one wants to talk about: Turkey. Ankara issued a statement on March 5th saying it was closely following PJAK's actions. In diplomatic language, closely following is the equivalent of tapping your knuckles on a table. It means we are watching and we are not happy. Turkey has its own Kurdish conflict with the PKK, an affiliated organization. Any scenario in which PJAK establishes a territorial foothold in western Iran is a scenario where a Kurdish-controlled zone exists on Turkey's southeastern doorstep. Ankara has fought 3 military campaigns in northern Iraq to prevent exactly that. It is not going to watch it happen in Iran with a smile. This adds a dimension to the conflict that the US and Israel may not have fully priced in. A NATO ally that is actively hostile to the same Kurdish forces that Washington is at least passively supporting. That is not a comfortable triangle. Let's be precise about what is happening in those mountains right now and what isn't. PJAK does not have the heavy weapons, the logistics tail, or the numbers to seize and hold Iranian cities. That is not the mission. A guerrilla force in mountain terrain is not a conquering army. You do not march out of the Zagros and take Tehran. The mission, if you read the operational logic, is subtler and in some ways more effective than a conventional assault. Force Iran to defend in the west while it is already being struck from the air in every direction. Pin down IRGC ground formations that might otherwise be repositioned. Generate uncertainty in Iranian command about where the main effort is. Demonstrate to Iran's Kurdish population, which is substantial, that the regime is losing control of its own borders. And uncertainty, in warfare, is its own weapon. Iranian commanders in the West right now do not know how many fighters have crossed, where the main effort is directed, or what objectives they are moving toward. That uncertainty ties down forces. It degrades planning. It stretches an already overstressed command structure at precisely the moment it is most under pressure everywhere else. A force that keeps you guessing doesn't need to win a single engagement to win strategically. By March 6th, the picture on the ground is this. PJAK fighters are inside Iranian mountain territory near Mariwan. Iranian forces have evacuated civilians from the border city and established defensive lines. A senior PJAK official has publicly denied that a full offensive is underway, stating they are preparing for the right opportunity, though that statement came hours after multiple sources confirmed active troop movements. That gap between the official statement and the reported reality is not unusual in guerrilla warfare. It is doctrine. You do not announce your offensive until you are ready for them to know you've already won. Stand back from the mountain ridgelines for a moment and look at what Iran is actually dealing with right now. It is defending against US and Israeli airstrikes across its entire territory. Its air defense network has been systematically degraded. Its naval assets are under pressure in the Gulf. Its proxy networks in Iraq and Syria are being hit. Its drone production infrastructure is taking strikes. Its command and control has been decapitated at senior levels. And now, the western border. Whether the United States is formally backing PJAK or not almost doesn't matter at the operational level. The effect is the same. Iran is fighting a war on more fronts simultaneously than any military command structure can comfortably manage. Something, somewhere, has to give. The question is not whether PJAK can win a conventional ground war against Iran. They cannot, and they know it. The question is whether Iran can hold all of this together at once, the air, the sea, the mountains, and the street, without something cracking. In 1979, the regime that fell in Iran fell not because it lost a single battle. It fell because it ran out of fronts it could defend at the same time. History doesn't repeat, but sometimes it rhymes in ways that make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. That question does not yet have an answer, and that is the most honest thing anyone can tell you right now.